Today, especially, we do live in this stress matrix. They may not have the traumatic experiences you went through to that level. But we as humans don't usually put those levels. It's just stress and trauma. We associate the levels ourselves.
Yeah.
I was having this discussion with someone recently. When you're look at what kind of a upbringing you would want if you could go back and do it all over again. People say, well, I wish I was born to millionaire parents and I didn't have to do anything. Those are the people at some of the highest suicidal rates. They carry their own stress and trauma, as we all do.
Yeah.
And it impacts them incredibly, sometimes much more than someone who's been actually abused in some ways. So you can't really put a number to it and say my stress and trauma is more than yours. But I think what you could do is look at the patterns that we all deal with stress and trauma. And you were able yourself to figure out, how do we resolve that? How do we go back? How do we become more authentic and start to do that? And I would love to hear, with your work, with what you're doing, how are you getting other people to do that? How are you guiding people to become more authentic, to resolve their trauma, to stop living in the stress matrix, which is black and white, which is disempowerment, which is non-freedom, right? No choice. Because I see it way too much. I see young people that should be healthy coming in the doors of our clinic feeling that way, feeling completely disempowered, completely with no choices, solutions, and just lots of trauma unresolved, not wanting to even touch it, living in this black and white world where everything is bad. They're a victim of everything. And how do you start to work with someone to stop the vicious disease cycle of what that is and spiraling down and uplift, evolve, and empower people?
I do it by creating a successful pattern interrupt. And when you look at a human, or any species, right? You look at a dog or cat or a lion with, that has a maimed paw, right? When any species is in pain, they're willing to reach out and put aside, right, their belief system that was projected into them because they want to get out of the pain. So the people who find me, they're already motivated. And they already have some semblance of honesty that has either been delivered to them through a loved one, or they've had some experience in their life that has woken them up to go, whoa, I need help. And so again, they're already motivated when they get to me. What I do is, the first step is education. And they have to read my book. I tell everybody, look, if you're not willing to read my book, if you're not willing to take a small risk, like a small risk for me is like, spend $19, right? If you're unwilling, like a burger in Los Angeles costs more than $19 now, right?
Right.
Like if you're worth less to you than a hamburger, you and I aren't going to have a conversation. But if you get to the point where you're willing to take the smallest level of risk, read the book called Free for Life, A U.S. Navy SEAL's Unique Path to Inner Freedom and Outer Peace. If you're willing to read that, now every chapter, you're going to go, and hopefully by the end of the book, you're like, I got to figure out how to get in contact with this guy. And so the first step for me is education. They have to jump through a hoop. If people don't jump through a hoop, they're not vested. If you're not vested with putting some of your own energy in, right? That's a book. Maybe it takes you 3-4 hours, 5 or 6 hours to read, depending on your ability to digest information and understand. If you're willing to do that, now you feel like, hey, I put in some time, some energy, and effort. I'm going to take another risk. I'm going to email this guy at support@truebodyintelligence.com. They send an email. Guess what happens? Christina, my assistant, she gets back to them and we get on the phone. And when I'm on the phone with them, I simply go, they start talking And I think they think that I'm going to be directing them, and I don't. I just want to hear what they have to say. And I go, how can I help you? They go, well, I thought, do you have any questions? And I go, no. What's going on? That's it. What's going on? And I think they feel this spaciousness inside of me because I've achieved what I call a state of neutrality. I add nothing, I take nothing away. I see things for what they are. And all I'm here to do is help and guide you. Right. So when you're in neutrality and you're with people, people are willing to offload some very hidden, difficult things that they've been dealing with. And some of it is childhood trauma. Some of it's work trauma. Some of it is relationship stress. Some of it's financial stress. And as I provide that open container, they start sharing, and I mean going really, really deep. And I listen, and that's it. And I go, okay. And at the end, I go, if you want to move forward to the next thing, let's have another conversation. Like, I get you. I see where you're at. I understand. All right. I've been there too. And I relate with them, right? I've experienced all the forms of stress and tension and trauma that a human can experience. So there's nothing anyone's ever brought to me or I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't understand that. Or no, I couldn't help you with that because I know the limitations of the human body because I lived them. I pushed it to its edge. I took in every bit of stress, every unique form of stress that you can. And I resolved every one of them. And so when we're on the phone, I'm there to make them feel secure. When people feel safe and you build rapport with them, they're willing to take a bigger risk. And so for me, it's about education, right? Then spaciousness, and then rapport. And guess what happens? We have trust. And once we have trust, the risk for them seems riskless. But if we don't have rapport, if they don't have education, if they're not emotionally vested, if I'm not relating to where they're at, we have distrust. And in distrust, people take no risk at all. And so the way that I help them is I took a risk, right? I called people like, hey, I found you on the internet. It says you do this, this, and this, and I'm struggling with this. Do you think you could help me? And they're like, sure. And I went down there and I threw down my dollar bills. I put in my time, my energy, my effort. I applied their suggestions and I saw how far they could take me. And then once I got where they could take me, I went to the next person. And so I've created the same process, except what I did add to that process is I added education because my feeling is this, even if a person chooses to not move forward because the risk seems too great, at the very least, they have the education now. They know what tension is. They know what trauma is. They know what trauma is. They know what emotional distortion is. They know that everything that they're doing is to avoid punishment, rejection, humiliation, discomfort, and pain. And those seeds have been planted. They may sprout 3 years down the road. They may sprout 5 years down the road. My job is to simply inform them that we can create a successful pattern interrupt for you and you could have a different life. And if that's what you want, I'm your guy. I got your back. This is easy.
Do you find the people that are coming to you, you mentioned this, they're already at a state, it's almost like they've hit rock bottom. They're desperate in a sense to do that.
Yeah.
Do you find that people really do need that? Because I was even listening to something the other day that says we as humans in general, usually at any cost try to avoid that rock bottom, that pain, that discomfort, that unease, right? And we're very good at it so that we kind of stay in this bottom tier of life. And we don't ever hit rock bottom that will propel us up. So we avoid bankruptcy or we avoid leaving that person or anything. And we're unhappy with it, but just unhappy enough we can live with it. If we hit rock bottom, we wouldn't live with that feeling and it would propel us to change something.